professionals are on this side of the camera. Mark Madden presented by Chuck Sauce. I am Justin LaBar, JPILaw.com, presenting the show. Guys, let's talk about WCW. Woo! Let's talk about WCW.
So much for coming back here next week.
Let's talk about WCW. Greatest world champion ever. We're not talking about all the way back in the NWA. We're just talking about the 90s, basically. Greatest WCW world champion ever.
Well, since we're talking 90s, let me just start by saying I would say DD Me was the second greatest WCW world champion ever. Everyone else was tied for first. As far as the Stinger goes, the 1990 Great American Bash, which I was at in Baltimore, was a very unique occasion because that was the height of the newsletter phenomenon, the dirt sheets. I'm not talking about the IWC, I'm talking about the dirt sheet community, which was a lot smaller.
And legitimate.
But whose members were a lot more knowledgeable.
And more legitimate.
And that was the last time all those people gathered in one place to see a wrestling event. I was there, it was incredible. Meltzer, Bruce Mitchell, Wade Keller, all those people. And everybody thought it was the time to give your guy Sting the world championship. The minute he got it, you knew he shouldn't have it. Now that's no knock on Sting. He proved to be a great wrestler over the longer haul of his career. Just at that moment, when he beat Flair, a lot of people said, oh my God, he shouldn't have beat Flair. He's a great wrestler, he's a headliner, but he should not have beaten Flair. And he got what I would call the Sting pop. I named it after him. For the next 2 or 3 years, Sting got huge pops every place he went. There were just less people there every time.
And he still didn't take a limo with you to the airport.
And here's the problem.
No, I grew to like Steve. Leave that out of this.
I'm just joking.
I agree with you. I don't think he should have been given the title fresh off the knee injury coming back against Flair.
You remind me more of the Renegade than Sting.
But at some point, Jeff Farmer as well, maybe. This looks like Sting. No, I think Rick was the greatest champ of all and WCW champ ever. That's hands down. You can't argue that. If someone wants to come at me with Hogan, Hogan was a force champ with creative power who couldn't even put Sting over clean after the greatest year-and-a-half feud there ever was, build up for a championship match, and he couldn't put Sting over. Now, I'm the Sting guy, yeah. And Sting...
Really?
Sting had some very,
I thought it was Road Warrior Hawk.
Sting had some great matches. Vader, I think, was the most underrated champ. I think Vader was a great champ.
Well, now let me say this. The biggest moment for the WCW title in the 90s, biggest moment, was Flair versus Vader, career versus title. In fact, that may have been the last gasp for the old NWA title, the true world championship. That feud was perfectly executed. It was Flair's best run as a babyface, it really was.
It was a good... Yeah.
That was tremendous. And, you know, Hogan came in and buoyed the promotion, but didn't draw money. He took out more than he put in. You know, don't get me started on Hogan and WCW.
Well, I'm going to say, I actually, to me, I was going to look, Rick is, I'm not taking anything away from Rick, and he has the most prestige. But in terms of talking about business, Hogan, Hollywood Hogan, winning the title in '96 just after the NWO has become official. They spray painted the NWO on the belt, and then holding it and taking on Piper, Savage, Flair, Warrior, everybody takes on until Goldberg finally tears down the Empire. Say what you want to say about Hogan and put him up against all the prestige that guys like Flair might have had, but I gotta say, for business,
no, it wasn't good for business. I mean,
but the belt really the
NWO didn't need Hogan to succeed. They needed him for that moment, but they should have kicked him out 2 months later because he wasn't cool enough, and that way young people would have stayed with the NWO, which they didn't once Hogan got involved.
I hate to cut you off, but it's kind of funny. We bash the right decision in WWE all the time. That was the one right decision Vince made, was have Hall and Nash turn on Hogan after he lost to The Rock.
Exactly right. It was good for Hogan, too. But Hogan, here's a Hogan story that tells you all you need to know about him in WCW. Hogan's cut of the merchandise was such that for every NWO t-shirt that was sold, the company lost money. Hogan was just a leech, a drain, and did he add to the notoriety of WCW, the prestige, even the credibility? Yeah, he did, but he took more out than he put in. And that was good for him, but good for nobody else.
I do want to give a shout out to this one. He's not the greatest champion, but I think it's a great moment. And still to this day when I watch it back, and it might have been at a Great American Bash actually, when I watch it back still on WWE Classics, it's a great moment when you think about it in perspective. Ron Simmons winning the title and how crazy those people actually went for what it meant, whether it be for...
What did it mean?
Well, the fact that he was the first African American to win it the way he did. And
yeah, he won a fake match with a predetermined result.
It was still a big deal.
So
I disagree.
And the WCW NWA, which is this southern base promotion.
If you're saying they put the black guy winning in the face of the rednecks, yeah, then it was pretty cool.
It was.
So go to your list. We got to talk a little bit more about this. We can't just stop here. Your top 5 champs would have in any particular order. There weren't that many. But on that sheet that fell on the floor, I have some numbers down there. Hulk Hogan held the belt for 1,100 days over 6 reigns. And
1,100 torturous days.
And Ric Flair.
1,100 days where I wanted to vomit every single one of them.
Not as bad as Arquette.
Ric Flair didn't even get half of that. Barely a third of that Ric Flair held that title. And Ric Flair built up that title.
Fake matches, fake belt, didn't matter. Here's the thing about Hogan. Another just Hogan horror story. Hogan versus Flair in the cage. Loser must retire, right?
Right.
Flair had to beat him at not the Great American Bash, the Clash of the Champions before that, to make that match make sense. Arn came out, in the costume with the black hood on, turned out to be Brutus Beefcake later. Came out, Nancy Kerrigan'd him, Tonya Harding, whatever, hit him with a baton, and Hogan still wouldn't do a job for the figure 4. He wouldn't lose the belt. He did a count out so the belt stayed with him. If the belt goes to Flair, then Hogan putting his career up against the belt makes perfect sense. The way they did it was all discombobulated. It was totally nonsensical because the guy wouldn't do a logical job even once, leading to him winning the belt back.
And
wrap it up.
It's funny now because we talk about you really don't need the titles anymore to tell a story in the WWE. The product sells itself. But back then, if you look at the way the title rose, and Hogan took it, and right after Hogan took it, the first couple months were good. After that, can't lose clean to Sting, win back from Sting, and then it goes to Savage. Then you start bringing in David Arquette, Vince Russo won the title, D.D. Me, Booker T. All these guys, the way the title went, the company went down.
Well, the bottom line is, Hall and Nash made the NWO, period.
Let's not forget about Kevin Nash's great reign, huh? A little bit of taser action in DC, Starcade.
Well, Kevin often uses the taser in his personal life.
Chairshot Reality on Wrestling.com. Make sure you like the Chairshot Reality Facebook page. Mark Madden presented us by Chuck Salsa. Follow him on Twitter at Mark MaddenX. Also check out WXDX.com where he's on the radio here every single day in Pittsburgh. At Brian Gulish, if you dare. CSR Sports Network at gmail.com. If you have interest in having your brand, your music, your video, anything you have being associated with CSR.
Yeah, really good to be associated with this.
Mark Madden, the voice of WCW, Gulish, LaBar. We're out of here.
We belong to the music. We don't answer to you.